You made more money this year than your parents made at your age. You have a better job, a better degree, better everything. And somehow, you feel more broke than they ever did. You check your bank account and something tightens in your chest. Not because the number is bad, it's fine. You can pay your bills, you're not in crisis. But it doesn't feel fine. It feels like you're one bad month away from everything falling apart. Like the ground beneath you is made of glass and you're just waiting for the crack. You've never said this out loud, but you thought it. Probably this week. Maybe today. That feeling? It's not random. It's not a personality flaw. And it's not because you're bad with money. It's a psychological mechanism that's been running in the background of your life for years. And right now, it's costing you more than any bill you've ever paid. This is how it works. In 2025, Northwestern Mutual ran a study on financial anxiety across America. The result was staggering. 69% of Americans said that financial uncertainty had made them feel depressed and anxious. Not stressed, not a little worried, depressed and anxious. That's up 8 points from just 2 years earlier. 63% said money worries had kept them up at night. Nearly half said it was affecting their performance at work. And here's the part nobody talks about. 40% said financial stress had made them physically ill. Headaches, stomach problems, chest tightness. The kind of symptoms that send you to a doctor, not a financial advisor. But here's what caught my attention. The study didn't just survey people who were broke. These weren't people drowning in debt or living on the street. Many of them had decent jobs, decent savings, decent lives. On paper, they were fine. They felt broke, but they weren't. And that gap between what's real and what you feel has a name. Researchers have found something that sounds almost ridiculous until you think about it. How you feel about your financial situation matters 20 times more than your actual bank balance. Let me say that again. Your perception of your money is 20 times more powerful than the money itself. A social work professor who studies what he calls money disorders describes them as unhealthy financial narratives, the stories we repeat to ourselves. Constant worrying, chronic stress, the belief that no matter what you do, it's never going to be enough. And here's the disturbing part. These disorders don't discriminate by income. They affect the wealthy just as much as the struggling, because the problem was never the money. The problem is the story. This is the wealth perception gap. It's the distance between your real financial position and your emotional experience of that position. And for most people, that gap is enormous. Think about it. Have you ever gotten a raise and felt excited for about 3 days, then went right back to feeling like it wasn't enough? That's the gap. Have you ever looked at your savings and thought, that's good, and then immediately thought, but what if something happens? That's the gap. Have you ever watched someone younger than you buy a house or take a vacation and felt a wave of something you couldn't quite name? Not jealousy exactly, something worse. Like you missed a turn somewhere and now you can't get back on the road. That's the gap. And it's not a glitch in your brain. It's a feature. Your brain isn't designed to feel wealthy. It's designed to feel like you need more. Because for 100,000 years, the humans who always felt like they needed more food, more shelter, more safety, those were the ones who survived. The ones who felt content? They got eaten. But in 2026, that same instinct is being weaponized against you. And the weapon is something you're holding right now. Your parents didn't feel broke even when they were. You know why? Because they had 3 reference points. The neighbors on the left, the neighbors on the right, and their coworkers. That was it. That was their entire financial comparison universe. And most of those people were doing about the same as them. So they felt normal. They felt okay. You have 6 billion. Every time you open your phone, an algorithm shows you someone who has more than you. Not by accident, by design. The algorithm doesn't show you people who are doing about the same as you. That's boring. Nobody engages with boring. It shows you the highlight reel of people 1 or 2 levels above you, just close enough to feel possible, just far enough to make you feel behind. And it never stops. You wake up, you scroll, you see a 24-year-old closing on a house, a couple your age traveling through Europe for the 3rd time this year, someone who started a business 6 months ago and just hit their first million. Before you've even had breakfast, your brain has already processed dozens of data points telling you the same thing. You're behind. You're losing. Psychologists call this upward social comparison, and it's not new, but the scale of it is completely unprecedented. You are the first generation in human history to be constantly confronted with evidence that you're not doing well enough, every single day, before breakfast. And it doesn't matter how rational you are. You can know it's a highlight reel. You can know they're not showing the debt or the stress or the arguments. You can know all of that, and it still hits you, because the feeling arrives before the logic does, every single time. And here's where it gets dangerous. This isn't just making you feel bad, it's making you make terrible financial decisions. Financial anxiety creates a feedback loop, and once it starts, it is brutally hard to stop. Here's how it runs. You feel anxious about money, so your brain shifts into short-term survival mode. You stop thinking about the future and start reacting to the present. You either freeze, you stop investing, stop saving, stop opening the statements, you avoid the numbers because looking at them makes the feeling worse. Or you do the opposite. You panic spend. You buy something to feel better, a little dopamine hit to quiet the noise. New shoes, a subscription, a gadget you'll use twice. It doesn't even matter what it is. What matters is the 3 seconds of relief. Then the regret kicks in. Now you've spent money you didn't want to spend, which makes you feel even less in control. And that feeling of losing control feeds right back into the anxiety. Round and round it goes. And here's what makes it invisible. You don't see it as a loop. You see each moment as isolated. You think the anxiety is about the bill. You think the spending is about the product. You think the regret is about the decision. But it's not. It's one continuous cycle disguised as separate events. An Intuit financial wellness survey found that 45% of Americans admitted that impulse spending had directly derailed their financial progress. Not bills, not emergencies. Impulse spending, driven by anxiety. And 59% said they were actively trying to cut back on small daily purchases in 2026 because they finally recognized the pattern. But most of them couldn't explain why they kept doing it. They just knew something felt off. Now you know what's off. But wait, there's another layer to this, because the loop doesn't just run inside your head. It runs inside your household. Let me ask you something, and I want you to actually think about this. When was the last time you had an honest conversation with your partner, your spouse, your family about how money actually makes you feel? Not about budgets, not about bills, not about who spent what. About the fear. About the tightness in your chest. About the way you lie awake at 3 in the morning doing math you've already done 100 times. Because here's a stat that floored me. 56% of married couples have never had a serious conversation about money before getting married. Think about that. You'll talk about kids, you'll talk about where to live, you'll talk about whose family to visit for the holidays, but money, the thing that causes more relationship damage than almost anything else, you just don't talk about it. And 75% of millennials in relationships say financial stress has damaged their relationship with their partner. Not threatened, damaged. Past tense. You're not just carrying this alone, you're carrying it in silence. And that silence is where the loop gets its power. So what does this actually cost you? Not emotionally, in dollars. Let's say financial anxiety causes you to delay investing by just 3 years. Not quit, just delay. You keep the money in a savings account while you figure things out. At average market returns, that 3-year delay on $10,000 costs you roughly $47,000 by retirement. Not because you lost money, because you were afraid of it. Now multiply that by every anxious decision you've ever made. Every time you panic sold, every time you didn't open the statement, every time you signed up for something you didn't need because an ad caught you at your most vulnerable. Every time you chose the safe option, not because it was smart, but because fear was making the decision for you. The wealth perception gap doesn't just make you feel poor. Over a lifetime, it literally makes you poor. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, the largest investment firm on Earth, wrote in his annual letter just days ago that since 1989, a dollar invested in the stock market has grown at 15 times the rate of a dollar tied to median wages. 15 times. The gap between those who invest and those who don't isn't closing, it's accelerating. And every year you spend frozen in anxiety instead of moving forward, that gap widens for you personally. And in 2026, the pressure is getting worse. Tariffs are pushing household costs up by over $1,000 a year. Businesses that absorbed those costs all through 2025 are finally passing them to you. Prices are rising, wages are barely moving, and every headline is designed to make you feel like the floor is about to drop out. But here's the thing they don't tell you. The floor isn't dropping. The cracks are real. The pressure is real. But the collapse you feel coming? That's the perception gap talking. That's your survival brain screaming at you to panic. And panic is the most expensive financial advisor you'll ever hire. So how do you break the loop? You don't break it with more money. If more money fixed financial anxiety, every rich person would sleep like a baby. They don't. You break it with awareness. Step 1. Name it. Right now. If you've been feeling like you're falling behind, say it out loud. I'm experiencing the wealth perception gap. Because the moment you name the mechanism, you take away half its power. It stops being, I'm bad with money, and becomes, my brain is running a survival program that doesn't match my reality. Those are two very different stories, and you get to choose which one you tell yourself. Step 2. Audit your inputs. How many times a day does your phone show you someone with more? Count it tomorrow. Actually count it. Every ad, every influencer, every friend's post that makes your stomach drop half an inch. You'll be horrified. And once you see the volume, you'll understand why you feel the way you do. It's not weakness, it's math. That many inputs would break anyone. Step 3. Have the conversation you've been avoiding. Not about the budget, about the fear. Tell someone, your partner, a friend, anyone, what 3 in the morning feels like. Because the silence is where the loop breathes, and the moment you let air in, it starts to lose its grip. This won't fix your rent. It won't lower your grocery bill. But it will stop you from making the decisions that cost you far more than any bill ever will. The most expensive thing in your life isn't your mortgage. It isn't your car payment. It isn't even your taxes. It's the story your brain tells you about all of it. And you can change the story. If this is the first wealth theory video you found, we break down one invisible financial mechanism every week. The traps nobody explains. The psychology that's quietly draining you. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.